a bit of a bleak horizon that we look out on. We don't want to be guilty of rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. Europe looks bad, and I go over there a fair amount. 6% of the population in church. That's where we're headed. I thought of an illustration that Mark Rutland shared in a recent talk where he said this incident happened in a Midwest Christian college, and I thought this is a good illustration of just kind of how bad it is. There's a leader in that Christian school, and student, son of missionaries, and everybody looked up to him, straight A student, and he was a victim of a terrible tragedy. The coroner arrived at his room, and it was a terrible crime scene. It was blood spattered all over. This young man had 50 knife wounds in him. Many of them by themselves were fatal. One knife wound to his cranium. And the coroner said, well, this is obviously a homicide. Later, the campus pastor arrived and said, no, this is a suicide. The report came back from the autopsy, and it was, in fact, a suicide. And the coroner said to the campus pastor, how did you know that that was a suicide? Crazy. And the campus pastor said, everybody loved this guy. I mean, what's not to love about him? Only one person could have hated him enough to do something so heinous as this. That was himself. He did that, and he kept on stabbing himself even after he'd already killed himself. Now, maybe we don't know something that bad, but there's tragedy all around us. It happened in my life with my daughter and a coworker just a couple of weeks ago, where you look at him and you think, wow, this is a good Christian kid, and yet they've got this life, this alter ego, this stuff that's going on behind the scenes. And you as a youth pastor, you're stuck and you're going, how do I cope with this? It's beyond me. And Mike Yaconelli, a few years ago, before passing away, said, youth ministry as an experiment has failed. He said that. It's failed. So what are we going to do? How do we get to this place in the first place? Well, a couple thousand years go by in Christian history, and there are no youth pastors. The greatest generation comes back from a couple of wars. They're hard at work. They need help. They can't quite do all that they're supposed to do. They hire youth pastors for the first time. My generation, baby boomer generation, comes along, says, that's a good idea. We're working pretty hard too. And we kind of delegate it out to other people. I can't quite disciple my kids, so I'll get somebody else to do it for me. And so that happens simultaneously with the nuclear family disintegrating. And the situation inside the church is the same as the situation outside the church. You got to wonder, are we making a difference at all? Are there alternatives? Where do we look for alternatives? It's not working. Consider the fact that right now what we're really doing is we're enabling baby boomers, my generation, by being youth pastors sometimes, because they feel good, my generation does, about the fact that our kids are being taken care of when you guys aren't equipped to do the job. What are the alternatives? Where can we look for something when we're playing on a tilted football field? Well, fortunately, I've got 5 children, and I've been through a few things myself. And I recognize that there is this inner voice inside all young people that says there's more, that says it's a whisper, that says there's something more. And it may feel adventurous, it may feel like bungee jumping, but there is something for me beyond this little safe environment that I'm in. What is it? I don't know, but it's there. How do I tap into that whisper as a youth pastor? That's the question that I want to address today. I think we need to use what's naturally inside of all of us to our advantage. So let me tell you a little bit about my journey. When I was senior in college, Wheaton College, I was kind of tired of school, ready to do something. I happened to be in love at the time, but that really didn't matter as much as the fact that there was this thing going on over in Cambodia, the killing fields, this genocide. There were refugees by the hundreds of thousands pouring into Thailand, and I said, I can make a difference. I can go, and immediately dropped out, found a way to get over there, and began helping refugees. Subsequently, I went on a journey to Indonesia for a year, and then on to the Dominican Republic for a couple of years, did microenterprise loan work, and it impacted me. And this journey was interesting insofar as it I went to address the brokenness that I saw in other people, but what was really happening was it was beginning to address the brokenness inside me. My selfishness was being revealed as I'm reaching out, and as I'm living in a different culture, the stuff that's in me is getting worked out. And I'm discovering I need community, but I am finding purpose, but I need to dive deeper into identity. I'm wrestling with these identity issues in spite of the fact that I'm doing what I think is really a good thing. And my brokenness begins to get worked out. Now here's the deal. I'm in my 30s at this point. I got 5 kids. The kids need something. I know that I'm going to be passing on my faith to them. What possibly can I do? That's a picture of them when they're little kids. But in 2002, they're growing up, and I've got my own little youth group. I got 5 teenagers, and they're good kids. But the oldest is going off to college, and I'm recognizing this is my last chance to impact their lives. What am I going to do to make sure that they have got faith for themselves? And I thought back to the restlessness that I felt in my own life, the restlessness that kind of sent me on my own kingdom journey where I got my stuff worked out, and I thought, maybe I can give them something more than just a 1-week short-term mission trip. Maybe I can give them what Jesus did with his disciples, which Luke 9 and 10, as a part of their discipleship experience, he sent them out with absolutely nothing. He said, leave it behind to do absolutely everything, to heal the sick, to raise the dead, to preach the gospel. So we did that. We went to Peru. And in Peru, of course, you find poverty, you find different cultures, but we also found hungry people. We found people coming to us and asking us to pray for healing. And people were healed. We went and we planted 5 churches, and my kids began to say, this stuff works. This stuff actually works. This bald theology that didn't work at all back in the youth group, all of a sudden was working for them now, and their restlessness that had been inside was beginning to get answered. And so after that, in 2006, I thought, this thing that works so well for my kids, maybe I can impart that to others. And yeah, Andrew, we did go to Africa. My daughter went for a year, though, and held orphans, and it was awesome. And she didn't have Facebook at the time, so nobody knew what she was in obscurity doing that thing. But she loves orphans, and as a 26-year-old now, she wants to devote her life to them. So in 2006, I started this ministry called The World Race with 24 people, and we started out in Mexico, and we said, okay, let's see how far we can go in a year. And we went from there to Guatemala, and we went to China and on to India and places in Europe and the Middle East and Africa. The point is not so much the adventure, although you want to tap into that whisper that says there's more and we need to go on an adventure, but to take them into their own brokenness. And in community and in a place where they had so little, they did begin to discover that there's more, that there is more for them on this kingdom journey. So I got this kind of aha experience that all is not hopeless out here, that if we can get young people out of the environment where all this kind of dysfunction exists, if we can get them to leave all the voices in their lives that say you're limited, then stuff can happen. I wrote the book about it, Kingdom Journeys, because it's been so impactful in the lives of young people that have gone on this thing. I can't tell you how transformative the experience has been. We put them in groups of 6 or 7. They debrief and give feedback to one another, and as they experience the brokenness of the world, their own brokenness gets addressed. And so what I've learned is really that there are some things that I thought were true, that had been told to me are true, but which are not true at all. And so the first one is we're taught to settle down and get a job. The fact is that may be the worst thing for us. What Jesus did is he called his disciples out of their homes, out of their towns, out of the familiar, and out into a place where they could rediscover the reality of the kingdom. Secondly, the church says that rebellion is bad, that we're like, rebels, and we should not rebel. But I find that we can be like the frog in the kettle, slowly getting boiled alive by all this stuff that we take as normal. It was never intended to be normal, and the best thing we can do sometimes is rebel against a broken system. System is broken. Don't co-opt or adapt to it. Change. Get out of there. So rebellion keeps young people from being boiled alive. Third, We need to recognize that when our teachers say stop doodling, that they're actually suppressing a good thing. The doodling, that the idea of thinking about possibilities and thinking about where in life I could go is actually something put there to get us out of a broken place. Fourth, we should recognize that spiritual disciplines may have been told to us are difficult, that we can't do them, and we may actually end up failing. But I've found that this spiritual discipline of a kingdom journey is actually a very positive thing. People want to go on an adventure. They want to go and get away. And if you can take them away and into the kingdom, you have got a very powerful tool in your discipleship kit. Finally, this notion that only pure motives are adequate to get you to do anything. And the fact of the matter is, who has got pure motives? All of us do things out of mixed motives. Jesus himself took people and said, follow me and you'll get abundant life, but oh, by the way, there's this death thing that'll happen on the back end. Doesn't tell them all that. So begin with their motives of adventure. Begin with their motives of wanting to integrate into community. Begin with motives of seeing the world and take them into brokenness, take them into a place where they can see the kingdom for the first time. I want to leave you with an action plan. I want to leave you with 4 steps. What can I, as a youth pastor, do? Obviously, you're not going to be able to go on a kingdom journey. I wish a church would actually fund that. Take a year of your life and go off with your youth group. Can you imagine that in America? Don't think it's going to happen. But recognize this. We're in the matrix. And rather than pimping our kids to a system that asks them to co-opt the brokenness of their parents, buying into a culture of more stuff and settle down and get a home, there's something outside the matrix that's actually a good thing. Secondly, take your kids on a mini kingdom journey. I'm not saying a 1-week trip. Try something that's at least what we were able to experience, which is a month. You can't hide in a month. Your stuff begins to come out. And lest you wonder, can this actually be done in my milieu, in my church? There's a church called Grace Community Church in Lilburn, and they go for 6 weeks to Peru. And the change that they see as they focus on discipleship is incredible. And then finally, recognize that by casting a vision for this, you can begin to change mindsets. There are young people, we've got 600 of them now going on the world race this year. The thing is growing at up to 50% a year. It's incredible the response that young people are having to this, and that all of them are writing blogs. I suggest get on those blogs, begin to read what it is that others are experiencing, and your kids could experience the same thing. And as you do that, you'll recognize that it's possible to change the score, the way we keep score. It's not about how many people are in my youth group. It's how many of them are getting the opportunity to discover the kingdom of God. How many of them are getting the opportunity to maybe engage in a gap year, a kingdom journey. And that, just 1 out of 10, would be an amazing thing. Yes, give 10 the opportunity to do other things, but go for the quality that the one person will experience. And perhaps as an extra credit, some of you need to drop out. Some of you are only doing youth ministry because it's easy and it's comfortable for you. My thought is, stop it. Quit. Go on a kingdom journey yourself. Thank you.